Welcome! Today we are shifting our focus to a high-stakes environment, the job interview. Whether it's your first time or you are a seasoned professional, the pressure is real. Why is it that we often know our own value, but find it so difficult to follow through with a confident performance when we sit across from an interview panel?
It's because an interview isn't just a conversation. It's a performance under a microscope. The interview panel, a group of people from different departments, is there to assess not just your skills, but your cultural fit. When you walk into that room, your brain often goes into survival mode. To succeed, you have to reframe the situation from an interrogation to a professional exchange.
Preparation is obviously key. How should we get ready before we even step through the door?
You need to do your homework. Look into the company's recent projects and their mission statement. You want to zero in on the specific problems they are trying to solve. When you show up with knowledge about the firm, it shows you are serious. Also, brush up on your elevator pitch, a 60-second summary of who you are and what you bring to the table.
Let's talk about the actual behavior. What should we aim for during the talk?
First, watch your body language. Maintain eye contact with the person asking the question, but don't shut out the rest of the panel. Nod to them as well. When a difficult question comes up, don't rush into an answer. It's okay to take a second to think it over.
What are some common questions we should watch out for?
You will almost always run into behavioral questions like, "Tell me about a time you failed." They aren't trying to trip you up. They want to see how you deal with setbacks. Use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result, to break down your answer. This helps you get your point across clearly without rambling on.
Sometimes the panel might bring up a gap in your resume or a lack of specific experience. How do we handle that?
Don't try to cover it up or make excuses. Instead, focus on your ability to pick things up quickly. Highlight how your existing skills transfer over to this new role. If you can point out specific examples of how you've taken the lead in the past, the panel will overlook a lack of direct experience.
Sometimes a panelist might cut in or ask a stress question to see how we react. How should we deal with that?
Stay calm. They are checking your emotional intelligence. If you don't know an answer, don't try to wing it or make things up. It's better to come clean and say, "I don't have that specific information right now, but I can find out and get back to you." This shows honesty and a proactive attitude. It's a much better way to stand out than pretending to be perfect.
What about the "tell me about yourself" opener? It's where many people trip up.
Most people go on and on about their childhood or hobbies. The panel doesn't want your life story. They want to know how your past links up with their future. Break it down into past, your experience, present, what you do now, and future, why you fit in here. This keeps your answer on point and prevents you from rambling.
If the interview starts to go south, is there a way to turn it around?
Absolutely. If you feel you messed up an answer, you can circle back at the end. You might say, "I'd like to add on to my previous point about project management." This shows you are reflective and capable of self-correction. The panel will value that you didn't just give up when things got tough.
Should we bring up the topic of salary or benefits during the first round with the panel?
Usually, it's best to hold off until they bring it up or until you reach the final stage. You want to focus on the value you provide first. If you jump the gun, it might set the wrong tone. Once they are sold on you as a candidate, you have much more leverage to work out a favorable deal.
We've discussed the panel dynamic and the importance of body language, but the most critical part of the interview is the content of your stories. Why is it that we often know our own value, but find it so difficult to follow through with a strong narrative when we are asked about our past experiences?
It's because we try to summarize too much. When a panelist says, "Give me an example of a time you handled a difficult client," they aren't looking for a general statement. They want a specific story. If you gloss over the details, you lose the impact. You need to structure your response so they can follow along with your logic.
This is where the STAR method comes in, right? Can you break it down for us?
Exactly. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. Situation. Briefly set the scene. Task. What was the challenge you had to deal with? Action. This is the most important part. What did you specifically do to fix the problem? Don't say we, say I. Result. What was the outcome? Always try to back it up with numbers or a positive compliment from a boss.
That sounds like a lot to keep track of in the middle of a high-pressure conversation.
It takes practice. You should write out 5 or 6 stories from your career and fit them into this framework before the interview. Once you memorize the structure, you won't get flustered when a tough question pops up. You'll be able to pull out the right story for the right moment.
What if the result wasn't perfect? What if the project fell through?
Even a failure can be a win in an interview if you focus on the learning part. Point out what you took away from the experience and how you changed your approach for the next project. This shows the panel that you are someone who can grow from mistakes rather than just dwelling on them.
As we wind down, what is one thing that can really set a candidate apart at the very end?
Curiosity. When they ask if you have questions, don't just ask about the salary. Ask something like, "How does the team handle tight deadlines?" Or, "What would success look like for this role in 6 months?" It shows you are already projecting yourself into the position.
We've reached the final stage of the interview. All the tough questions have been answered, and the STAR method has been applied. Now, it's time to say goodbye. We clearly recognize our own value. Yet, why is it that we often struggle to seal the deal during those last few minutes?
It's often due to mental fatigue. By the time the interview is winding down, most candidates just want to get it over with and leave. However, psychology tells us about the peak end rule. People tend to remember the most intense part of an experience and how it ended. If you fizzle out at the finish line, the panel's lasting impression of you will be weak.
So, how can we maximize the impact of those final moments?
First, never skip the opportunity to ask your own questions. Saying, "I don't have any questions," is a huge mistake. Instead, prepare some high-level questions that focus on the company's future. For example, what does success look like for someone in this role after 6 months? Or, what is the biggest challenge the team is currently facing? This shows you are ready to contribute to the company's success rather than just looking for any job.
What steps should we take once we walk out of the room?
The work isn't finished yet. Sending a follow-up email within 24 hours is crucial. This isn't just about being polite. It's a strategic way to keep yourself on their radar. In the email, reference a specific point from the conversation. This proves to the panel that you are paying close attention.
And if the response is delayed or we receive a rejection, how should we cope with it?
Never take it personally. Sometimes you are a fantastic candidate, but you might not be the right cultural fit for that specific team at that specific time. If you get a no, reach out and ask for feedback. The areas they point out for improvement will help you in your next interview. Every no brings you closer to the goal, the right yes.
So, an interview is not just an exam, but a two-way process of getting to know each other.
Exactly. Communicate your value with confidence, but keep in mind the importance of professional etiquette. A final firm handshake and a sincere smile complete the picture of a polished professional.
Excellent advice. I believe our listeners are now ready to finish any interview with a win.
Good luck to everyone. Believe in yourself.